Welcome to the Balanced Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Sherman, fitness coach for burnt out perfectionist. If you're ready to break free from overwhelm, simplify your nutrition, and make fitness finally work for you instead of against you, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive into easy strategies to balance your health with your busy life. Let's hustle for balance, not burnout. Grab a seat and let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I posted on my stories yesterday on Instagram asking you what you wanted to hear this week on the podcast, and I gave two options. And the first one was a pep talk to lock in for the last 2 months of the year, and the second one was how to stop battling with food confusion and overwhelm. And every single person voted for the pep talk. We all need a pep talk this year. So that is what we are talking about today. And right now, I think especially is kind of a confusing, maybe unsettling time of the year. There's a lot of change happening, not only with the seasons and things like that, but also, I have to say it, I don't want to get political, but we are in the middle of election time. This is election week, and that can be kind of really sometimes frustrating for people. There can be some tension even between family members, things like that, confusion, fear, all those kinds of emotions are flying around, maybe just wanting it to be over. So there's that going on, as well as, like I said, just the change of the seasons. It's getting colder, darker. I'm from New York, so if you're in the same kind of area, or at least in the United States, days are getting shorter. We've done that daylight savings time thing again, where we set our clocks back. And I thought that we were going to get rid of that, but apparently not. Apparently we're still doing that. So we just set our clocks back this past weekend, and it's now dark at like 4 or 5 o'clock, which it's not my favorite. It's really not my favorite. Honestly, I would rather have it be darker in the morning. I would rather have it feel like I'm getting up in the dark, like getting ahead of people. I don't know, like have that kind of feeling. Like I feel really motivated when I'm getting up and working out and it's still dark out and then I see the sun come up. I kind of like that. And then the days are longer versus having it dark on my drive home from work. I'm not a fan of that, but we're still doing it. So that's happening right now. And then the other thing that's happening is Halloween just passed. So people are decorating for Christmas now. Apparently that's also a thing, that we're decorating for Christmas the day after Halloween. And part of me was tempted. Part of me was tempted because I decorated for Halloween. I would say a little bit earlier than not Halloween. I don't really decorate for Halloween, more so fall. But I decorated for fall a little bit earlier than I typically do, I would say. I think it was still September. Maybe it was October 1st that I decorated for fall, which for a lot of people, that's not early at all. A lot of people decorate in September. So I've had kind of my fall decorations up for a month now, and I'm like, I kind of would like to change it up, but I'm not convinced yet. No one has convinced me yet to switch over to Christmas. And most of the people that I know and that are in my family are convinced that it is still not time to switch over to Christmas. So I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer. Although I will say, waiting until after Thanksgiving seems like a long ways away. And that's when I typically wait till. I typically wait till like the day after Thanksgiving, and I'll start putting up Christmas decorations. And I usually don't get my tree until a couple weeks before Christmas even. So the tree doesn't last very long because I'm taking that tree out like on New Year's Day. That's not hanging around any longer. And we typically get a real tree also, just for reference. But I'm taking that out on New Year's Day. Like I am done with Christmas. There are no more presents to be given or received. And the holiday spirit for me is just kind of gone by New Year's. So Christmas doesn't really last very long if you wait until after Thanksgiving to decorate. But it feels wrong still to decorate before Thanksgiving. So we'll see. I'm just going to go by feel this year, by vibe, by what I just feel like doing, and also what my husband allows. And it's not like I have to obviously ask for his permission to decorate, but when you do live with a partner, you share the household, you kind of feed off of each other. I'm not doing anything that he's, like, absolutely not. I would hate that. That'd be awful, kind of thing. So also kind of what he allows me to get away with decorating early. So we will see. But let me know in the comments or even over on Instagram, Facebook, if you have decorated yet and what your opinion is on decorating early. When's the time frame? Like, are we right after Halloween? Are we waiting till after Thanksgiving? Because that's a big block. That's like a month block. So I'm interested to hear your opinions. So that's enough rambling about that. So let's dive right into the episode and give you your pep talk for the next 2 months. So my goal for this podcast episode is to inspire you, to motivate you, to really lock in these last 2 months of the year and to not just let them what am I trying to say? The last 2 months of the year for me are typically, I think of them as being kind of like gray, cold, dark, uninspiring. You're waiting for the holidays to give you some kind of light, some kind of fun that you just don't get in the cold months. And you're kind of waiting for New Year's to reset and restart your goals. But I'm going to give you the motivation today to start now and to really grind through these 2 cold, dark months, November, December. I know January is cold too, but really these last 2 months of 2024 give you the motivation to get through them. Can I say motivation one more time? All right, so you may have seen a trend going around on social media called the fall arc. And I never saw that until this year. I don't remember seeing that last year, but maybe I was living under a rock. But I started to see it this year, and a lot of people posting about the fall arc. So what is that? So I went ahead and I just Googled it because I wanted to know what the internet told me that it was, even though I was starting to understand and starting to get the vibe. But, so this is what it says. It says the fall arc on social media is part of a broader term where people refer to periods of time, like seasons, as arcs, inspired by narrative structures in fiction, which I love because I'm a big reader, big fictional reader. So I'm like, okay, make me the main character. Put me in a novel. Okay, I'm all for it. Let's romanticize life a little bit more. So they said, in the case of the fall arc, individuals use this concept to frame autumn as a time for specific goals or transformations, like focusing on self-improvement, embracing seasonal activities, or tackling new challenges. Then they go on to say, for example, as the weather cools and routines change with the new season, some people may use their fall arc to set intentions around fitness, career, or personal growth. It's similar to the winter arc trend. Okay, and that's what I was confused about because I'm like, do we have a fall arc and a winter arc? Like, what's the difference? So they say it's similar to the winter arc trend where people proactively work on self-betterment during colder months rather than waiting for New Year's resolutions. However, it's essential to balance this drive for growth with self-compassion to avoid burnout or falling into a toxic hustle mentality. Oh, look at that. That just perfectly fits in, in the intro of this episode. Let's hustle for balance, not burnout, right? So I feel like we've got a good basis to talk about this today. So, fall arc. And I start to think, one other question for you. How do you see the months? Like, I know winter, I had to look it up. Winter doesn't start until December 21st or 22nd, it says. But I think of November as starting to be winter. And then, like, Thanksgiving Day is fall. but the rest of November is winter. I don't know why. But I also saw this thing online, and I'm just going to go on a tangent here, but somebody was talking about how you see the months in your head. Like when you see the months in your head, when I picture the months in my head personally, I see them in a list. Like January is at the top of the list and December is at the bottom of the list. And it's just a long list. And that's how I see the months. Like I saw them, maybe that's because that's how I saw them in kindergarten, like on the wall. They were in a list. And that's why I start to get not confused, but almost a little fuzzy around like the middle months of the year. Like April, May, for example. August is kind of a middle, like they're kind of in the middle areas where I know like January's at the top, February, like they're kind of in their section of my list. You know, June is in the middle, and then December, you know, I kind of know like the first 3 months, the middle month, and the last 3 months. Does that make sense for anyone else? Do the other ones get kind of fuzzy? I'm just very curious to know, so please let me know. I was talking to someone else about this, and they said that their months are like, I think they were saying in threes, like they kind of zigzagged. So when they picture them in their head, they kind of zigzag, almost like a board game board. And I was like, what? What does that even mean? So anyways, however you look at the months in your head, which please tell me, please let me know because I'm very interested to know. However you look at the months in your head, picture these last 2 months, picture November and December as your fall arc. So this is your time before New Year's to really lock in, set your goals, set your intentions, and get to work, right? Before New Year's happens. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But also, again, not grinding and hustling so hard that we burn out. So I've talked about this, I think, a little bit before, but fall is the best time to do this. And I can't believe that I never realized this in years past. I was also just waiting for New Year's. Like I did a little bit in the fall, but I think sometimes in the fall, around this time, we can start to get almost like senioritis of the year. And does anyone remember that when you were a high school senior, maybe even a college senior, and you had senioritis, like you were just ready for it to be over with? And I think that's how I used to think about this time of the year. Like September and October were the fresh start. That was like going back to school, getting new school clothes, new school supplies. And then when I got to November and December, that was like senioritis of the year. Like it was almost time to go on Christmas break. Like I may have failed at all the goals that I set for myself last New Year, and it was just kind of like we were out of time. There was no point in trying to hit any of them, to reach any of them still for the year. So the rest of the year was kind of like a throwaway, right? But the more that I'm seeing all this stuff about the fall arc and, you know, people that I follow that inspire me on social media, I am realizing more and more that this is like the perfect time to just lock in. So again, it's a seasonal, fresh start. So a period of new beginnings. If we can just take some of that energy, we all get it in September, I think, and just keep pulling it through to the end of the year, we can keep that new beginning feeling as cooler weather comes. And it's also a natural reflection period. So like I said, sometimes I would look at my goals and say, wow, I didn't hit my goals from January. Let's kind of throw away the rest of the year. I think naturally when the fall comes, that is a time for us to reflect and to think about what we did accomplish this year, what we didn't accomplish this year, and what we are looking forward to for the next year. And even you can do this in a few ways. Just thinking about it is one way. If you happen to make a vision board, which I will hit on a little bit more, if you made a vision board for last year, taking a look over your vision board. Another thing that I tend to do is just look through my camera roll on my phone, look at my pictures. I was doing that the other day looking for some pictures for something, and I just started scrolling back throughout the whole last year, and there was so many things that I totally forgot happened during the year that I was like, wow, that did happen this year, and that did happen just a few months ago, and that did happen in February, March, April, May. We start to forget those things towards the end of the year, and I think that can be a really good way to reflect and kind of look at, did you take any trips? Did you go to any maybe leadership opportunities for your career? Did you go through any programs? Anything like that. Just take a look. Did you move? Did you get a new pet? All of these things, take a look through your camera roll for the last year and just take some time to reflect on not only the things that you haven't achieved yet, but also be proud of the things that you have, and let that propel you also into next year and encourage you to believe that there is so much more that is possible. A year is a long time. Sometimes towards the end of the year, it feels like it flies by, right? But it is a long time, and so much can happen over the course of the year. So I want you to reflect and kind of start to get your wheels turning and inspire yourself to think about, wow, if this happened in the last year, and maybe you didn't have a lot of really good moments in the last year. Maybe it was a really tough year for you. What do you want the next year to look like? So sit down, whether you are a journaler, whether you like to write things out, whether you like to draw. The way that I like to do things is I am a writer, but my problem is I will write for days. I will write a novel and my hand will be cramping. I don't enjoy that. That's not very inspirational for me. That just starts to feel like work, like I'm writing an essay, because I can't help myself. So what I do is I go on Pinterest, and this is not like to compare myself to anybody else, but it's to get inspired, and I will make a Pinterest inspiration board, and I will just start thinking, and I'll sit there and I'll think, for example, when I wanted to buy a house, I'll sit there and I'll think, well, what kind of house do I want? And where do I want my house to be located? And what's important to me in a house? And I would really think about those things, and then I would search intentionally for them on Pinterest instead of just scrolling on Pinterest and being like, ooh, this house is nice. This is nice. I'll take this, luxurious kitchen that I can't afford. Just really thinking about what was important to me and then searching for those things and starting to compile a board. And that leads me into vision boards, which I kind of just hit on a little bit. But vision boards are so, so essential. I started making vision boards, I believe this is my third or fourth one. So I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years. I'm looking at mine right now. And I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years. And at first, I just wanted to do it because I like doing crafts. I like making collages, going on Pinterest, cutting things out. I just wanted to do it because I like doing crafts. But then I realized that they are so, so powerful. And there's a few ways to make sure that you do vision boards right. So number one, like I said, really taking the time, and it could take, you can start now. You can definitely start working on your vision board now because you want it to be intentional and you don't want it to be something that you just throw together within 15, 20 minutes or so, right? So you want to start thinking about all of the aspects of your life that you want to see come true for the next year. And you can dream big on this vision board. And it can be things that don't feel attainable in the next year. It definitely can be. But just starting to think about all these goals that you have, what you want life to look like. So my vision board looks like a combination of both goals that I want to hit, both big goals that I want to hit, but also just what I want my daily life to look like. So if I'm looking at my vision board, I have some fitness goals on there, but then also I have just some daily life kind of photos. So for example, I've got books and I've got reading and I've got, I'm looking like up at the wall. I'm actually sitting on the floor, so I'm trying to look up at the wall, but I've just got like little things in my day-to-day life. I've got one thing on there that says, spoil your skin, because one of my goals for last year was to really focus on skincare a lot more and just little things like that. Those are just like daily things and habits that I wanted to incorporate into the year. And it doesn't all have to be huge, ginormous goals like, maybe buying a house or switching careers. It doesn't have to all be like that, but I definitely recommend there be some of those things on there. Some things that don't quite feel attainable, that are big and scary, that do just push it. They push it a little bit, and I want you to have some of those on your board too. So a little bit of both. And then when you make your board, I'm almost like not giving you an option at this point. You cannot do a vision board. You can choose not to do one. Don't feel like I'm telling you have to. But I do highly recommend, because what I found is for the last 3 to 4 years that I've made a vision board, they've pretty much always all come true. And I'm not even making that up. And that is because, I will tell you the psychology behind it. And that is because you are putting something onto a board, onto a surface, in whatever kind of format you want to, whether it's pictures, words, whether you cut things out of a magazine, whether you print things out on Pinterest, whether you draw. It would be cool to see someone draw one. Again, I'm not an artist, but you could draw whatever that format is for you. You are taking that out of your head, putting it onto paper, onto a surface, and that is almost like making it real, because when it's in our head, it can kind of float around, it can float in and out, we can choose to forget about it, we can choose to push it off. It's just kind of in limbo. But when we put it out onto paper, into the universe, we are declaring that for ourselves. We're not declaring that we are going to achieve all of those things, because we can't. We simply can't, right? But what we are declaring is that we want these things, that we want those things to happen. And it almost sounds silly, but I think for females especially, it can be hard to declare that we want certain things. And I don't know exactly why that is. I don't know if it's a fear of being pushy or too assertive or being called, all these types of things that we frame ourselves as women, but we are allowed to want to achieve certain things and have goals to achieve certain things. And I think, not to get to, men versus women and kind of dive into that, but I think men have just an easier time with saying things like that. A man can say, I want to be a millionaire someday. And I think it's easier for them to say that than a woman to say, I want to be a millionaire someday. Because I think the next thing that happens is a woman starts to just kind of pick that apart and say, well, I want that, but it might not happen. And I'd be happy with just a family and some kids and a small ranch house. And, we just start to pick it apart a little bit more, where I think men have an easier time being a little bit black and white, a little more black and white, and not thinking about the details as much. Again, that's just a very general stereotype. You may not be like that at all, but for me personally, that is how I feel sometimes. So it can be hard to just declare, like, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And that's not selfish, that's not greedy, that's not demanding. These are just the things that I want out of my life. And again, it doesn't have to be, I want a mansion. It can just be, I want to relax. I want to make space to relax this year. I want to read 10 romance novels this year. It can just be things that you just want to make sure you are on track with, and that next year doesn't come and you're like, oh my goodness, I did nothing. I did nothing that I wanted. I went to work, I came home, I let the day kind of take me where it decided to take me, and I did not kind of manifest these things that I wanted, and another year goes by and you feel discouraged. So putting those things onto a board, onto paper, I highly, highly, highly recommend. Take some time, even if you're listening to this on your drive into work. Maybe you're at work and you can listen to, music and podcasts. You're listening to this. Maybe you're doing chores right now. Whatever you're doing, take some time and just start getting the wheels turning. What do you want next year to look like? What do you want the end of the winter to look like, and the spring to look like, and the summer and the fall? Where do you want to be at this time next year in November when it starts to get cold again and you are resetting? Where do you want to be? What do you want your foundation to be next year at this time when you are looking to reset and reach even higher and reassess your goals again? So start just getting the wheels turning. You don't even have to do anything physically just yet, but start getting the wheels turning. And then if you do decide to make that board, make some type of vision, a board, I'm going to say board again, but if you do decide to do that, it can be, there's a few ways that make it more effective than others. The first way, and that's something I've failed on before, is not putting it in the right location once you've made it. You need to put your vision board in a spot where you will see it every single day, or at least most days. Because again, the point of this board is to remind you what you want out of life, what goals you have, and to constantly just keep them in your head, even if they are in your subconscious, in the back of your brain, even if you can't work on it today necessarily, it's in your head and it's not slipping away. You're not forgetting about it. It's in your head, and that is what helps you achieve those things. And that's why all of my vision boards have pretty much always come true, because I've been seeing those things every single day and just taking the baby steps to get to those things. So even when it comes to, like, one of my biggest goals last year was to start this coaching business, right? To just get it started, and it was on my board. And maybe I didn't do, maybe I didn't do a whole bunch of stuff to start my business one day, but I looked at my board and I thought, I've got to at least start an Instagram profile. I've got to at least do that, and just looking at that every day, I have those baby steps to keep carrying me onward and to conquer the things that seemed scary and seemed unattainable and that I normally would have just kind of let float out of my head. I could have procrastinated on it, and I had set it in stone on paper that is what I wanted, so I went after it, right? So if you've never made a vision board, highly, highly recommend this year. If you are local to me, I will be doing a vision board making party at the ice cream shop at Melt Ice Cream on Main. That's where I've been doing workouts the past few months, but I'll be doing a vision board and ice cream night there. So if you are local to me, look for those details. I'll be putting them on my Instagram soon, and start thinking about what you want to, incorporate into your vision this year. So again, you can do that early as today. Start working on that, putting that together. Again, I'll be doing that vision board party in a couple weeks here, but you can start really anytime now, putting that vision together and then starting to work on it, starting to, again, lock in, as I've said. This is really the perfect time, and I want you to almost think about it kind of how I'm picturing it, as this quote that I often think about, which is, the quote is, "Work hard in silence, let your success be the noise." And I think that really applies to fall, and I've been thinking about that quote even more and more, fall and winter, because it's like you're working hard in these darker, quieter months. You're turning out progress, you're hustling, within balance, within reason. Obviously, there's time for all of the cozy things, family things, holiday things, but you are kind of almost working in silence during the fall and winter. And I'm not saying like you can't talk about it, can't talk about what you're doing, things like that, but I think in the summer, it tends to be just a little bit louder. People are talking about what's going on and what's happening in their life, but the fall and winter is like you are almost working undercover. And I think that's really cool, and I really like that, because it's almost time for you to just transform. And a lot of us, again, think of New Year's as that time to transform. But girl, you've got 2 months. You've got 2 full months. It's only November 6th at the time that I'm recording this. You've got time. You've got time this year to make a change. If you have a career goal, maybe a weight loss goal, maybe you want to gain some muscle, maybe you want to, transform something in your home. Maybe you've got a relationship goal that you're working on. Maybe you want to start dating again. Maybe you want to just capitalize on this time by yourself. Maybe you're single right now. Maybe it doesn't really matter what your goal is. 2 months is a lot of time. 2 months, so much more can happen in 2 months than we often believe. But you've got just under 60 days to work towards this goal, to put in the time to the habits towards this goal. Imagine if somebody came to you and they said, yes, I have been working out consistently for 60 days now. That's not a small feat. That's not small. And you can see huge progress in that amount of time. And again, I'm not saying like you have to work out every day or you have to hustle every day, but imagine if you just walked. Imagine if you were just walking every day for 60 days. Do you think that would make a difference in your health? Yeah, it'd make a huge difference. Imagine if you started to wash your face every day for 60 days. Imagine if you only did half of that. Maybe you skip. Maybe you're not perfect, because none of us are. Maybe you do it every other day. 30 days. That's a lot of time. That is an amount of time that you can see big change. And I know some of this change can be scary, but that is when we see really awesome things happen. Do you think that it wasn't scary for me to start an online coaching business coming from being a dairy farmer? I had my own workout experience. I've had 10 years of my own workout experience. I've done a lot of research. I've been involved in exercise and fitness for a very long time, but I had no formal education in it. I had no college degree in it, but I took the leap again during a dark, cold month when I was in quarantine during COVID, and I signed up for the online certified personal trainer course and exam, and I signed up and I took it and I did it. And then I started putting myself out there and I interviewed for a job and I started an Instagram, and it was scary, and it's still scary, sometimes when I'm posting on Instagram about things. And do I know that some people judge me? Yeah, of course. I know people judge me. I know people look at my Instagram, maybe people from high school. I don't know, maybe you're listening to this right now and you went to high school with me, and maybe you're just here to judge me, but that is fine. That is okay with me. And when you start to get nervous about your goals, I want you to remember 2 things. Number 1, your why. Why you are doing this. If it's something that you cannot get out of your head, that you have been thinking about for a long time, that is a very good sign that you need to do this, that you were meant to do this. All that's left to do is to figure out how. First, declare that you want it, put it on paper that you want this, and then figure out what your first step is. I don't care if you don't know any of the steps in between, figure out what the first step is. I didn't know what the steps were to owning my own business and, becoming a successful online coach, but I knew that the first step was I needed to get my certification. And then I figured it all out from there. So if nothing else, figure out what you want and what the first step is and go from there. It's like I always say, if you're going to apply for a new job, it starts to get scary. It starts to get very scary when you think about everything that needs to be done. Well, I've got to look for a new job and I've got to make a resume and I've got to, find the perfect job and I've got to interview and then I've got to quit my current job. And how am I going to quit my current job and let people down there? And how am I going to tell my family? No. First you need to decide that you are going to quit your job. And I know that sounds very simple and sometimes it's not. But you need to decide Maybe that you're just looking for a new job. Put that on paper. I am looking for a new job. I am exploring my options. And again, this is an analogy, but it's a very clear one. So put that on paper, declare that. And then what is your next step? Look. Can you pull out your computer and Google jobs near me? Can you do that? That's all you need to do. And then go from there. If you find something, what do you need to do? Can you put your resume together? Can you pull that out? Can you email it to the job people? Do you have the capabilities to email somebody? That's all you need to do. You don't need to think about the interview. You don't need to think about any of the next steps. Can you physically do the next step? Can you physically do the one next step in line? That's all you need to think about. And that is how people become successful. That's how people get places. That's how I started my business. I became a coach. I got my certification. I ended up quitting my job, got a job as a coach. Did I know what I was doing when I got a job as a coach? I tried. I really tried to know. I studied, I researched. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I needed to get that job to start learning. Then when I went to online coaching, I knew I had to start Instagram. I knew I had to do that. Did I know how to post? How to, come up with a content plan? Did I know how to make a reel cover? Did I know how to get people's attention on stories? Did I know how to do any of those things? No, I just figured it out. I just started my Instagram, introduced myself, started working at it. And I knew it was going to suck. I knew it was going to suck at first. And probably a year from now, I'll look back and I'll think that I suck now. But I've gotten better, right? So it takes just you looking at what the next step is, getting black and white about what you need to do, what you want, and what you need to do, and remembering your why. And why you are going after this, why you can't stop thinking about it, why it's in your brain. Remember that, because a year from now, if you don't go for this, if you don't take the next step, it's still going to be in your brain, and you're going to be kicking yourself, and you're going to be wishing you did it now. Now, the last thing that I'll leave you with, which I talked about just a little bit, is that you can't think about what other people are thinking of you. Absolutely not. They are not living your life. And I've had a lot of people go back to that job analogy, quitting my job. What are they going to think about me? When I was quitting my job, that was a huge thing for me. What are my coworkers going to think about me? What's my family going to think about me? What are the people I went to school with and college with going to think about me? Are they going to think that, I never was made to do this? That I am a failure? What are people going to think about me? That cannot be a factor in your equation. You cannot think about that because they are not living your life. You are the only person that shows up every day and lives your life. You are the only one. So you are the only person whose opinion this matters to. Okay? So remember your why. Remember that you are the only person whose opinion matters. As long as you obviously are being healthy and safe and not jumping off a cliff, doing something crazy and wild, it's only your opinion that matters, right? And then getting clear about what you want, what goal you want to set for the next year, making that vision, and hustling. Hustle after it for these next 2 months. You've got time. You can see huge change. If you commit for the next 2 months, you can see huge change. So I hope that I gave you some of the motivation that you needed to grind in this fall arc, to change your life possibly in this fall arc, because it can happen. Crazier things have happened. And you truly have the power to write your own story. You are the one putting pen to paper and deciding what you want out of life. You have one life. And I know that you know this, but you don't get to practice. This is the one life that you get. And if you're not going to go after your goals now, how are you going to feel when you're 80? What are you going to be wishing that you did? Are you going to be looking back at this moment in your life and saying, man, I wish he would have just went for it and just saw what happened and saw what was possible? Because there is so much more possible than you are giving yourself credit for. And now is truly the best time to start. So I hope I've given you some motivation. I hope that I've kind of kicked your butt into gear for the next 2 months. And I'm excited to hear all of the things that you accomplished. So please send me a message and comment on this podcast. Let me know that you are putting your goals into action this fall. Let me know what some of your goals are. Just chat with me. Tell me about what's going on, what you're going to accomplish this fall, and then I want you to tell me in 2 months what you did accomplish. I'm going to hold you accountable to it. So send me a message. I'm going to hold you accountable throughout the season. And I've got some really great things coming up for Black Friday. I've got 3 offers I'll be selling for Black Friday that are all going to be fantastic in helping you to continue this momentum and stay on your journey. So again, I've got 3 different offers, and I'm really looking forward to putting those out for you guys and having those help you with your fall arc and transformation. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I will see you on the next one. All right. Bye-bye.